Today we are going to discuss 5 ways that you can reclaim pleasure as a way of life. I have my journal here so I don't forget, although I don't think I will. And yeah, I want to start off by saying a couple of things when it comes to pleasure. Number one is it goes so far beyond sexuality, right? Sexuality is one way in life that we can experience pleasure, but it is not the only way. And actually, sorry, I'm outside at a beautiful lake location, but there are some bugs. Actually, devoting more to pleasure in our day-to-day life is going to help us be able to experience that much more pleasure in lovemaking and sexuality, right? I also will say that as women, so many of us come from lineages of women who did not prioritize pleasure. We came from mothers and grandmothers and great-grandmothers who were oftentimes people pleasers, oftentimes in the role of caretaker, and because of that, pleasure often gets put to the end of the line. And then another thing that a lot of women experience is that pleasure really isn't for them, right? Especially in lovemaking. And there is a reason that women, have often taken on this role. We are natural caregivers, and we have a body that is able to bring forth new life and literally sustain it through what's inside of us, so there's a part of that is so natural and innate. But of course, with things like that, then they sometimes get extreme, they get out of hand. And so I see among nearly every single client and student I work with women, which, by the way, I am an integrated female embodiment guide and somatic intimacy coach and pelvic health guide. It's 9 times out of 10 women are struggling with people pleasing. And when we constantly struggle with people pleasing, most of the time our pleasure gets pushed somewhere else, right? We lose our voice to that. We lose our authentic desire. And then ultimately we lose the power that we have to be the alchemist of our own lives. So with that, I want to share with you 5 ways that I love to reclaim pleasure in my own life, and things that I love to guide the other women that I work with into as well. The first one is dedicating your life to beauty and love and sensuality and creation, because honestly, at the end of the day, that's the point of it all, right? This very Venusian Aphrodite life that I truly see so many women craving. And I think that there's a lot of ways that we can do this, and some of the other points on my list will connect to this, but it's like first of all, thinking of sensuality, right? Sensuality is not just sexuality either, just as pleasure isn't. Sensuality is the way that we connect with our 5 senses and beyond, senses beyond that, and the world around us. It's the way that we connect with what we feel, our sense of touch, our sense of hearing, seeing, smelling, and it's also connecting with the elements, connecting with the water, connecting with the air, the fire, the earth, the ether, and implementing this into our everyday life. And then also just moving through life, asking ourselves the question, like, okay, what would this moment look like if I devoted more of it to beauty and to love? What would my outfit look more like? What would my morning routine look more like? What would it look like when I touch my body? What would it look like when I am interacting with a friend, when I'm having coffee with a friend? If I actually was dedicating it to that, maybe we would dress differently because we're thinking less about, oh, what will others think, and more, this feels like beauty to me. What if we treated our body as an altar, what would we put on it? What would we and who would we allow inside of it? You know, what would be our protocol for that, which for that can be different for different women, right? But really devoting to this, and also recognizing that this is the fuel behind your authentic creation, right? Because when you are connected to your senses and the love and the beauty of this life, which is truly infinite, then you have this engine, this creative force behind you, where you're going to be able to live the life that is meant to be for you from your soul, right? So that would be number one, dedicating to a Venusian life of beauty and sensuality, and letting that be the fuel for the creation of your own life. Okay, the next one is cyclical living and just holistic health in general. Mainly just understanding that inside of our body as a woman is a cycle that, especially during our reproductive years, changes significantly every 28 days, give or take. And the best way to really optimize our health and our life and the way we feel and the way we experience connection and intimacy as women is to be able to find balance in that. And I say find balance because this has become really trendy on social media recently, or maybe it's just my algorithm, but there's like a lot of extremes happening in the world of cyclical living, where it's like, okay, let's like escape the masculine 9-to-5 lifestyle, but I'm gonna give you like 20 new rules to follow on how to perfectly cycle sync so you can eat for your cycle, and this is the type of, you know, this is how many calories you need on this part of your cycle, and this and this and this, and it's like almost overwhelming as well. So I tend to always give the 80-20 rule when it comes to cyclical living, where do your best 80% of the time, and 20% if you're not able to, or if it feels overwhelming, that's okay too. We're humans, we're resilient, and you're going to be okay. But it just means finding ways to honor the cycle of our womb each month, which could be being less social and turning more inward during menstruation, you know, working more on creative projects during our ovulatory phase, actually ovulating, because ovulation is a vital sign of health in women, and when we turn that off through things like hormonal birth control, we actually affect a lot of vital functionings in our body that we don't want to do. Our ovulation is our life force in our reproductive years, and ovulation is healthy, juicy, we want it, right? The other thing I will say about cyclical living and health, and this is a big thing that I work with in my own life and with the students and clients that I work with as women, is understanding that the female nervous system must be treated differently when it comes to healing and somatics than how the male nervous system is. And one of the big things within that is oxytocin and oxytocin nourishment. So a lot of the practices that I do in my life and with women are self-touch oriented, ceremonial body work of womb massage, breast massage, maybe some sensual awakening rituals where I'm invigorating my sense of smell with yummy oils, or my sense of taste with yummy fruit or chocolate, or just really being more present in those moments in my life anyway, when I'm going to eat a meal or cuddle with my partner. But really understanding that that oxytocin is super crucial for the female nervous system. It's a huge component of what allows us to be in our parasympathetic mode, which means it's what allows us to be in a mode of our body that feels safe to receive life, blessings, intimacy, pleasure, etc. So low battery. So that is what I will say about that. And then the third one, I will say that the third one is getting really good at exercising your no muscle, of being able to say no. But there's more to it than this, right? It's like learning, number one, understanding and practicing boundaries with ourselves, because boundaries are a way that we form who we are. We form and we communicate with others our wants, our needs, our likes, our dislikes, so they can actually understand us and connect with us. So boundaries are really sacred. But the other thing is being able to exercise that muscle when something really isn't in your capacity, when you really don't desire something, when you really need something else in that moment. And this is not easy, and I know that, because this is something that, if you are a people pleaser, like a lot of women are, and this goes back like ancestrally, it's not as easy done than it is said, right? And I'm just saying it right now. So being able to practice that, you can even communicate with friends that it's something you're practicing, and kind of get to a deeper level of vulnerability of, okay, I am feeling like I want to say no to this, but I have a fear that if I say it, like, you'll be upset with me or you'll reject me, etc., etc. And so voicing that as well. The other thing that I'll mention on this number 3, boundaries, exercising your no, is also what I would put into the realm of working on your lover archetype, of this overflowing conduit of giving and receiving. Basically the opposite of this mode of like, I did this for them, so they need to do it for me exactly like I did it for them, and if they don't, I'm gonna hold resentment, but I'm not gonna communicate it, or it's not gonna feel good enough for me. That kind of takes us out of the present and getting to know how that person would actually want to give to us and how we would authentically want to give to them, which doesn't always look perfectly even. And I think that oftentimes this comes from a place of like, we need to look at relationships and intimacy as this tit for tat type of thing, which is the opposite of what we really want. And when it comes to experiencing just deep love, and love that is coming through us, that we get to share with another person, that we get to give and receive back times 10, just because it's coming from this authentic place within us, and not from this little, box that we've created of like even checking, of like, I did this, they did that, tit for that, because it can often become not just something that takes us out of the present moment of intimacy, but can be unsafe, really, and very distrusting, right? It's from a place of distrust. So when we, devote to a life of beauty and love and creativity, oftentimes we have this natural inclination to authentically give and receive, and we kind of get more into that energetic mode. Okay, the 4th one I will say is nature. Nature as the ultimate guide, right? If you want a life of pleasure, then Gaia is your guide, and you must prioritize her as the divine goddess she is, and also prioritize her in your life, right? Like, I could have made this video in the bedroom, but I chose to come to a beach and walk down a beach and sit under a tree so I could have a beautiful background for you, but also so I would feel more inspired to make this video on pleasure, right? That's like kind of like a feminine masculine energy thing. Like, the feminine is me being here expressing myself, the masculine is taking the initiative and having the discipline to make my way here and set this up and get to a place where there's enough privacy to make a video, but I also see people in the distance that can kind of see me making a video and kind of are watching me, and I'm still continuing to make the video because I am devoting to not giving an F and making this video for you, because I think that is more toward the realm of creating pleasure in my life for both of us. So that's number 4. It's pretty simple. And number 5 is pleasure in the sense of sexuality, right? And this is a big one. This is another video all on its own, but I think one of the main ways to reclaim pleasure in our sexual life and our sexual expression is through de-shamification, right? Starting to address all the ways we have suppressed and shamed our innate sexual expression, our expression of eros, because we needed to be good, or we needed to be appropriate, or it didn't work for a religious belief, or because of trauma, and the trauma needs to be tended to, because of fear of expressing our boundaries, because of what people will think. Honestly, the biggest pleasure happens on the other side of courage, and it takes work, and it's not something that happens naturally, which some of us seem to think that like a really beautiful woman who is able to experience pleasure and feels safe to express herself sexually, whatever that might look like for them, doesn't necessarily mean like overt sexuality. It could, it might not, right? But yeah, that's a woman who's had the courage to move through the shame she might have experienced, so she can access this part of us that is not only like our birthright to experience pleasure, to experience the joy of pleasure and connection, but it's part of our biology. It's something that is sacred and really innocent at the core of it, and for us to be able to return to the innocence of that and the wisdom that comes with that. And that's a huge way that we can reclaim pleasure in our lives. So that is what I have for you today, and we will go over the 5 one more time: dedicating to your Venusian life, your sensuality, your creativity, beauty and love; cyclical living, dedicating to that; exercising your no muscle and being a conduit for giving and receiving love; nature; and sexual reclamation and deshamification. Mwah.